If jiu-jitsu is your life and martial arts are your life, if that's taken away from you, you almost feel like you got cheated and things aren't fair. But that's not the right way to look at it. The right way to look at it is, okay, this has been taken away from me. What can I do? Not, it got taken away from me. I'm going to cry. And because in the beginning, I bitched and moaned and cried about it. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm too young. Blah, 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 blah. But it made me really realize later on in life, when I don't have it, who am I going to be? What am I going to be about?
Do you like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Do you like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments? How about a 5-man round robin Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament? How about submission only? Is this sounding like a pretty good deal to you? Well, if it is, tune in to the Matrix Jiu-Jitsu Invitational Tournament on the 12th of March. We'll be covering this tournament with a live stream and commentary. It'll be free for you. Tune in to the Matrix YouTube page and check it out. Additionally, if you live anywhere close to Kaiserslautern, Germany, then we'll be hosting Leg Lock Weekend on the weekend of the 25th and 26th of March. On the 25th, Oliver Taza from the Danaher Death Squad and TriStar will be coming to visit, and he will be teaching a leg lock seminar at Matrix Jiu-Jitsu in Kaiserslautern. The very next day, the 26th of March, Dean Lister will be returning to teach another leg lock oriented seminar. This is going to be a really great weekend of events. I'm very excited to hang out with these guys, do some podcasts, hopefully, do some techniques, hopefully. Definitely, actually, what am I talking about? If you live anywhere close to Kaiserslautern, Germany, I hope to see you there. More information can be found on our social media pages. This week, my guest on the podcast is my friend, Charlie Vinch. Charlie has been on the podcast before to talk about owning an academy, his jiu-jitsu journey, and kind of the entrepreneurial lifestyle in jiu-jitsu. Charlie is a brown belt under Phil Migliarese, who has also been on the podcast. Charlie is also an academy owner. He owns Budo Martial Arts Studios in Ewing, New Jersey. On this episode of the show, Charlie and I talk a lot about mindset and setting your intention, mental training, and we get into some hippie stuff. He also talked extensively about a serious injury that he had to deal with a few years ago and how that injury changed his life and impacted his training. Please welcome my friend, Charlie Vinch. Welcome back to the show. Dude, did you know that you are the second person to ever come on this podcast for a second time? So, congratulations.
Thanks for having me back, Paul.
Dude, so we were just kind of talking before the show about a bunch of different topics. One of which is just, it's crazy. Like, the last time we did a podcast, you did not have a baby, and now you do. And it's a crazy world we live in, because it feels like you and I just chatted yesterday. To me, you know, it feels like it happened just a blink of an eye ago, but it was a little while ago.
Yeah, Paul, literally it feels like last week, dude. And now I have a baby who's 12 weeks old.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
What have you learned so far? I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts about the subject, but is there anything in particular that stands out?
With my kid in general?
Yeah.
I've been asking other parents, you know, so the first couple of nights when you have a child, it's really taxing sleep-wise, because your child is always waking up and she or he is hungry, and that affects you because when you hear your child cry, you know, you can feel it internally like, oh, I want to help my baby. So my wife and me would always wake up and make sure that she was okay. And the first week or two are just like, you're sleep deprived. Like super, super, super sleep deprived. And I end up calling a bunch of my friends who have kids and like texting them the next day. I was like, guys, like, how do you do this? Like what do you do like to make your kids sleep, or what do you do for sleep deprivation? And the answer was the same across the board. The answer was, you'll get through it. Just do what you have to do now and things will be okay. So then from there, obviously I'm not satisfied with that. And I start looking at baby books, and Happiest Baby on the Block and books by Dr. Sears and things you can do to, soothe your child. And I'm like all in cahoots about, what do I need to do for my kid? Trying to make it perfect. And I talked to my friend Linda, and I'm like throwing all these books at her because she's a really sharp person. And she was like, she told me the best thing that I've ever heard that's going to answer your question. She said, Livia will teach you. That's my daughter's name, Livia. She said, don't worry about looking at books and doing this and doing that. Livia will teach you. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Yes, my daughter is going to teach me what I need to be doing.
That's a really cool thought. Like, if you think about it, something I've thought about lately and been learning about lately is like, we all kind of teach each other how we want to be taught, how we want to be treated. You know what I mean? Like, and it's funny, you say she's already starting, like you kind of wonder, when do these things start? When does like personality start to develop? Things like that. And I mean, the more I think about it, the more I obviously don't have a kid. I don't really know exactly what you're going through. Like I know, but I can't feel, you know what I mean? So it's like, personality starts so young. Is what I'm trying to get at.
Personalities do start young. You are a blank sheet of paper when you come into the world, and your parents and your surroundings influence mostly on who you're going to be later on in life.
How are you guys trying to move forward with that?
That's a really good question. So I heard a podcast with Josh Watkins.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and it was on the Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
And he had said something that me and my wife talked about even before I heard this podcast and before we, started implementing this when my child was here. But Josh just made it really clear. He just made it better sounding than what I made it with me and my wife. He said, I watch what I say around my kid because then my kid will associate with what I say with the subject. So an example would be, today's a rainy day. Oh, it's bad outside. It's crappy. It's not fun. It's miserable. So your child will make the association, oh, every day that it's rainy is a bad day.
Yeah.
So me and my wife talked about before using certain language in our house. We never say give up. We never say never. We don't talk about quitting. We always say, we have signs up at our house and stuff, never quit, and quitting is for losers and, all that kind of thing. So we watch our language. But when Josh said it, I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Not only quitting, but, associating certain things. So if your child thinks it's raining today and it's a bad day, well, of course, every time it rains, your child's going to associate rain, bad day. Mm-hmm. So what Josh does with his kids, what I thought was really cool, is every day it rains, they go outside and they have like a fun day. So now every day that it rains, his kid will associate rain with a good day.
Yeah. Yeah. So much of like how we behave, I think, is built around culture, the culture that we're raised in. Like every family has a culture, every, in jiu-jitsu, every gym has a culture, and that kind of like raises you, depending how you are, you get raised by the people around you. And, obviously starts with your parents.
100%. So there was a couple articles in it. I forget the book that me and my friend Linda actually were talking about. Your grandparents' parents' experiences in life actually transfer down the line to your experiences in your life. So genes affect other genes later on in life. Like, so if somebody in your family line was traumatized, maybe through like a famine or something, that affects the way later on in life that you actually start to think. So we don't think that. We always think, oh, it's just me. It's just this. It's really not all or none. Back to the kid thing. Yes, your language and the things that you talk to your children about do influence the way that they think. But you also have to take in consideration genetics and genes. Mm-hmm. So you take that in consideration and work on that too. And I think you're off to a good start. But your past genes, like your experiences with grandparents and their parents, that can affect the way that you see things.
Joe Rogan talks about it a lot on his podcast. There's like that experiment with the mice or something. You know what that describes like every experiment that ever happened. You know, the experiment with the mice. But he said that one where mice were shocked every time that they were exposed to a certain stimulus, and then the mice's grandkids or something, the mice's babies, I believe, they whenever you showed that stimulus to them, they had the same reaction. Their blood pressure raised, and they got more anxious and things like that. So I think that they're starting to get to a point where they can prove that in nature in these experiments. I just did a horrible job of talking about that experiment. That's one of those things where like I'm barely qualified to even have a conversation about it, let alone perform some sort of experiment like that.
No, I know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
man. They did that with monkeys and mice, and I know exactly what you're talking about and the effects that it has on the group.
Yeah.
The effects that when they keep plugging in, you know, a new animal to the group that hasn't been there, the other group, the vibe or the feel or whatever you want to call it, the other monkey can sense it, and that's why that other animal doesn't do that thing. This is really interesting. When people are there was a murder in Brooklyn, and her name was, I believe it was Emily Genovese. Let me look at that real quick. This was a long time ago.
Yeah.
When this murder happened, it was back in, I don't know if that's her exact name. I will definitely find that out and we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah,
Is that cool?
sounds good. Yeah, of course.
There were, like, everybody in the neighborhood watched this woman literally get murdered.
Oh, yeah.
In front of the whole neighborhood.
Yeah,
in front of the whole neighborhood. So there's 30, 40, 50 people watching this other human being killing this other human being, but nobody took a stand to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Because as a group, we collectively think worse than we do individually. And those are some studies that they've done also, where if this person was being murdered and there was only one person around, that person actually would have taken action to stop the murder as opposed to being in a group.
Yeah.
Because everybody's looking at each other like, oh, what should we do? Well, I guess nobody else is doing anything. Well, I'm not going to do anything. But when you're by yourself, you have to make decisions quicker.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I've never been in like a riot or a angry mob hunting after Frankenstein or something like that. But I mean, I've heard that there's a certain thing that happens to you. You know, the same thing happens, I guess, at concerts. You know, like you get into a crazy feeling at concerts because you're just kind of behaving the way other people around you are acting. I think the same, I don't know, it's crazy. It's crazy how we work like that.
It's, her name is Catherine Susan Genovese.
Oh, okay.
And she was an American woman who was stabbed to death outside her apartment building in Key Gardens, a neighborhood of New York City, borough of Queens, March 13th, 1964.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. And she was stabbed some ridiculous amount of times, too.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah. And like you said, like groups influence other groups. And sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes that's a bad thing, depending on how that group is using their power to influence others.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if
Like
they're
using it in a good way, like Gandhi, that's great. You know, if you're using it like Hitler, it's horrible.
Not good. Yeah. Like if you are, you know, if you're a culture or a society rather, and you're all living together and you're all teaching great values and helping raise each other's children and raise each other's, you know, adolescents and things like that, and you're doing great stuff, then that's great. But I feel like nothing is ever perfect. You know, there's no group that's ever totally doing the right thing. They're always going to have some sort of like fucked up value that they're teaching for the most part. I think something's messed up, but then you know, experiment and evolve together kind of over time.
Yeah, nothing's perfect. Nothing is all or none, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing where you're like, oh yeah, they are totally without any fault. You know, some people I think are better off than others, but
yeah, for sure.
Anyway, how do you feel like the culture of a jiu-jitsu gym would help raise the people in it? You know what I mean? Like, how do you think that culture plays a part in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Culture is everything with Jiu-Jitsu. Phil Migliarese, perfect example. He is a great person that other people want to be around because he lives a fulfilling, true life. And that helps other people live their life. So lead by example. And, Phil and Rick have created a beautiful atmosphere at their gym. And that's what attracted me to, their gym. I think I talked about this before. I was at a couple other places prior, and the training was good at the other places, but the atmosphere was not. And my radar kind of went off, like something doesn't feel right here. Like the training's good, but like the people are really, really, really not aligning with the way that I feel. So I'm going to quit jiu-jitsu. And then I found Phil and Rick.
Yeah.
And then it was history from there, because we ended up finding out we went to the same high school and we knew the same people and our family knew each other. And it was just like, match made in heaven. Perfect. Your culture at a jiu-jitsu gym, tells basically who you are as the instructor. Your students follow suit. So if you're a condescending, mean person, more than likely your students are condescending, mean people.
Mm-hmm.
Because they want to follow suit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And they see that as the person who's ever in charge is more than likely kind of one of the more successful people in the gym, if that makes sense. Like, obviously, whoever's instructing the class is probably pretty good at jiu-jitsu, hopefully. You know what I mean? So they're seeing that as the example. Like you were just saying, lead by example. If someone is not doing the right thing, then they're going to say, oh, this is the expectation for me to act like this. And that's the key for me somehow improving myself.
Dude, Phil does that all the time, all the time. If there's a brand new person that came into the gym that has never done jiu-jitsu or kickboxing before, he will treat them like he would treat his grandmother, greet them properly, have them come in, make sure they're comfortable, take them step by step. If they have any questions, he'll answer questions after. And that's huge.
Yeah.
That is how people come into your gym and learn to do something that they may do for a lifetime. I hate the assumption that it's like this old school like martial arts thing where it's like you got to be tough and you got to be rough on this person and you got to kind of treat them a little bit like not like a human until they earn, quote unquote, like who they are in the place. Like, come on, man. Like, what do you think this is? This isn't that's cult mentality. That's what that is.
Yeah.
This is not a cult. This is a club where people come to train and have a good time, and people want to feel like they're welcome. And everybody at the gym is welcoming. Well, then that's a cool place to be. No reason to like ostracize, other people out of the group. And to tell you the truth, that makes other people feel really bad. There's been studies done when people are not part of groups, they would rather do anything to be in a group than die. Mm-hmm. So they would rather be at the end of the pecking line, basically, quote unquote, shovel shit all day, even if they hated it, but to be part of the group as opposed to not part of the group. There's some, psychology in that, but that's awful. Have you ever ran into that at any gyms that you've ever been to?
Yeah, I have, for sure. Some gyms that just kind of treat people like crap, and some that, like you said, they're not welcoming to the new person. You know what I mean? Like they're not, it's almost like a trial by fire, mentality to like get through and get to be a place where where you can actually be accepted. And that's not good. You can't do that. It's going to drive people away.
Not only drive people away, but that person who, you possibly could have drove away, you could be changing that person's life indefinitely for the rest of their life.
Yeah, exactly.
You could be helping this individual for the rest of their life. This person could be a world champion. This person could be a teacher. This person could be a great mother to somebody, a great father, a great boyfriend or girlfriend to somebody, just because they came into your place and did jiu-jitsu and you turned them away because they had to, quote unquote, earn their place in the pack or whatever that means.
Yeah.
And places do that, honestly, because they know if they do that, people will they'll start to drink the Kool-Aid, and then they'll say, oh, I'd rather, shovel shit and be a part of the group than not be a part of the group. Mm-hmm. And then they put themselves in a bad position. and it's like a bad relationship. Like they want to get out, but they don't want to get out. And then it becomes the white tiger. Did you know that there was so when the white tiger like came to America, whatever, and they were like going extinct, I forget which zoo it was at, but the white tiger was in a very small pen, and it would pace along the edges of the pen. Okay, it paced so much along the edges of the pen that it made like ruts in the grass. So it had like an outline of dirt, and then in the center was the grass, right? Because it got familiar with that area.
Yeah.
So they expanded the cage later when they added more animals. Guess where that tiger stayed after they expanded the cage? Hundreds of thousands of feet later.
Same
in the same spot.
Yeah.
Because it didn't want to be out of that comfort zone. It knew that it was for the benefit of his or her health. Would have to get out of that, but didn't want to. So it just stayed there in that little ring, over and over and over and over and over. My sister works for a nonprofit company that deals with women who are physically abused. And one of the things that physically abused women run into often is that they rather go home to their boyfriend or girlfriend, husband or whatever, and get abused than not go to another spot and be safe, because being abused is familiar. So that plays into, the human psyche, where it's like, I want to go what's familiar. So when these people go into these gyms and, they start getting treated like crap, they're going to do one of two things. They're going to stay and be at the end of the pecking order and try to like climb their way up or whatever, quote unquote, or they get smart and they leave right away.
Yep. And I think a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people stay. I see it a lot.
You see it a lot, right?
Yeah, I see it a lot.
Those are the people who will like call you, or they'll like look at other gyms and they'll be like, hey, can I come train with you? But like, you can't tell anybody that I'm coming to train with you.
I know.
And you're like, okay, it's cool, man. Like, you can come train. I won't say anything. Like, no problem.
Yeah, I know. I've experienced that before. Yeah, it's not good. And kind of like you said, people just gravitate towards what's familiar. They'll always have an excuse, They'll always have a reason for why they aren't going to leave their gym. Maybe maybe it's close. Maybe the other gym's it's $10 more per month, something like that. You know what I mean? Like I've experienced that. I've seen people, or maybe it's like, oh, I don't like their style as much. I like this style. This is my game of jiu-jitsu, what they teach here. And it's like, dude, like come on, not really. Like you can bring your game to a new gym. You know what I mean? Like it's not like your game doesn't work at other gyms. So, but I hear that.
They're brainwashed.
Yes.
It's a brainwashing mentality.
Yes.
True, like loyalty, you don't have to talk about.
Yes, for sure. I heard one excuse where this one dude I knew, he didn't want to get his next belt because he didn't want to go to a new gym. He didn't want to like make the effort to go to a new gym, even though he knew he wasn't going to get promoted at his gym because his instructor was a blue belt or something like that. And he didn't want to go to a better gym because he was like, the new belt, it doesn't really matter to me, because he was like, jiu-jitsu for me, it's just a hobby. I don't really want to be like a world champion, so I'm not going to go to that gym. I'm good. Like here, this is comfortable. I'm good. I don't need to get better necessarily. And I'm like, dude, like I get it, but you can do that and also get better. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, of course.
I don't know.
Of course. Phil's really cool with like, dude, like honestly, I could do whatever I want. I could go train at any gym that I want. I've trained at other gyms before. I told Phil, I'm like, hey dude, I'm going to go. I was in Italy. I trained at jiu-jitsu. I was in Florida. I was at other gyms. And he was like, yeah, man, I was in Newark, New Jersey. I trained at a Henzo place over there. It was great. And, he was like, yeah, man, that's great. You should go train there. Took seminars with Henry Akins. He was like, dude, Henry's a good guy. You should do seminars with him. He's really good. And, he's encouraging to go other places and train and get different looks. Like, dude, that's what it's all about. But I know where my home is. But he doesn't have to force me to be there because I want to be there.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. Did you see the Rickson video that came out this week and all the controversy surrounding that?
No, what was it about?
The one where Rickson was talking about like being a creonte or whatever it's called. He's like, being like not loyal to your academy and stuff like that.
I didn't see it.
I'll send it to you. I'll put it in the show notes. But basically, what Rickson I think was trying to express was like you shouldn't train at 2 academies at the same time. You know what I mean? He was that's what I think he was trying to say. I think he was trying to say, like, basically, like, it is against your best interest and the best interest of your team if you are, like, simultaneously training at 2 academies or 3 academies. I think that's what he was trying to say, which to me, I'm like, I see your point. I kind of, like, there's parts that maybe I would disagree there, but, like, for the most part, I would agree. Like, that's what I do. I'm going to one school at a time. And, more than enough. But I have met people who train at, like, 2 or 3 different schools, like, at the same time. And it's like you're kind of not committed to any of them.
Yeah.
But
you're not committed. And well, I think, Paul, this is important. Where you are in Germany, this would be, I think Hickson was talking about, probably, back in the day or in certain academies, you shouldn't stray to go to and be actively training years on end at other places while you're training at his place, which makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
If you're at an academy and the highest belt there is a purple belt and you're a blue belt and you want to up your game, well, now how do you up your game? Then you kind of have to go somewhere else. Exactly. Then. And you don't know if you can, quote unquote, stay loyal because you might not be getting the work that you need in order to advance. So yes and no. So for you're in Germany, you may need to do 2 places for whatever reason, time-wise. And not a lot of people train in Germany, like you said. Yeah,
for sure. And exactly. Here it's very different. Like, I have one teammate, for example, who trains at our academy during the week. I should start by saying we're mostly a no-gi academy. Mm-hmm. Like, our instructor kind of specializes in the no-gi game, and they're very, very good when it comes to no-gi, and very good in the gi too. Like, we do have gi class every once in a while, but for the most part, it's no-gi. So if you want to go learn gi, you've got to go to a different academy until we get, more instructors and stuff like that, which we will, and we're getting there. But, like, for example, one of my teammates trains at our academy during the week, and then he goes to Alliance in Frankfurt during the weekend. Frankfurt's like an hour away, and he does gi class there. And, I'm like, yeah, cool. But, yeah, I can see what Hickson's saying for sure when it comes to populated area.
Yeah, I do too. I totally do.
Yeah.
And I know Phil would say the same thing.
Yeah, when I was in Poland, the coach there, because there are lots of teams in Poland, actually, especially in the city where I was.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of like...
What city was that?
Szczecin, which is near Berlin. And it's like right on the border of Poland, the border with Germany. And it's kind of like the mecca of jiu-jitsu in Poland, because there's three or four very, very good teams in that city, and they're all really big. Like, if you go to the mall at Szczecin, you see like 5 people walking around with cauliflower ear, or walking around wearing like jiu-jitsu hoodies and jiu-jitsu shirts. And you're just like, lots of jiu-jitsu people around here. And, but all the teams kind of like, they don't like hate each other, but they don't, they all are competitive with each other, like healthy, pretty friendly competition for the most part. And I was asking one of my coaches about like what he thought about it all. And he said that his opinion is if you played basketball or football or something like that, you wouldn't like on the weekend go train at the other football team. He was like, if we have practice here or we're doing our own thing, if we train 5 days a week with our team, and you take one of those days and you go train at the other team, like, you're going to kind of miss out on some of what we're doing, and he was like, if you played football for us, you wouldn't go play at the other team, and like see what they were doing. He was like, you would be falling behind with our team, so to speak.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. It's not like you're taking a vacation somewhere and you're like, hey, I'm going to go train at this place for a couple days.
That's different.
Right. It's different. Completely different.
But yeah, I think that there is a line there between like, I think where there's a problem is like if your academy is acting very like you can't train at other academies, and meanwhile they're not very good or they're missing something. I think it works out if your team is great and has a great culture and has everything that you could need But it's different, I think, if there's something missing, like we were talking about.
Yeah, and if you're at an academy, and we've had this at our place where different people from other academies will come over and train, and quote unquote, maybe they weren't allowed to or whatever. And I said, man, don't worry about it. Like I'm not gonna, go and say anything, but I need you to just be honest with your instructor if you are gonna come over. Just to say, hey, you're gonna come over and train, because that's not who I am. I'm not gonna do anything behind anybody's back. So I just want you to let your instructor know, and they usually do, and they let them know, and they come over and train, and then it's cool. If you want to go, I think even if you have a great academy and a great place to train, and you have great training partners, it's always good to see, to get an open role at another gym, once every 3 months or whatever, just to get a different feel and a different look. And if you're questioning yourself that much, like week in and week out and day out, like, should I go to another gym? You probably should. I mean, if it's once every 4 months, you're like, yeah, my buddy invited me to his gym in an hour away. All right, cool. But like, if you're questioning yourself every week, should I go somewhere else? You probably should.
That makes sense.
Trust your instincts.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what happened with you. You had the thought of like, maybe I should go somewhere else or do something different. And then you showed up at Phil's gym and here you are.
Yeah, exactly. I showed up at Phil's gym and I got smoked by the Vogel brothers. Did you have them on the podcast yet?
No, we're having a podcast in the next couple weeks.
Oh, cool. Hey, man, he just smoked me, man. I was like, oh my God, this is the place I have to be. Like, nicely smoked me. Not like,
yes.
not like hardcore, like shoulder in my face, make me hurt for days. Like, I'm talking like lightly, just like move around me like a spider until I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah. How long had you been training jiu-jitsu at that point? Do you remember?
That's a really good question. So, Paul, I started with Jeet Kune Do when I was 14 years old.
Yeah, you told me about this.
And the academy that I was at, the instructor, Rick Tucci, who was a very, very, very well-known martial arts instructor all over the world, actually.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
He's a great, great, great guy. He was a blue belt under Machado back then, and we would do some gi jiu-jitsu, I think, like once or twice a week. And, I mean, we're going back 17 years from now, 17, 18 years from today. So at that point, I had been training jiu-jitsu maybe for like on and off for 7 to 8 years. And when I say on and off, I mean really on and off, like maybe like 6 months off and then 6 months back on. And Rick Tucci was actually a certified instructor under Eric Paulson at that time too.
Oh, wow.
So we would do shoot wrestling with gi. So I had a mixture of things going on at that time.
It's really cool. It's kind of where I was when I showed up at my current gym. I've been doing like going all these different places, studying all these different types of styles of grappling, whether it was like judo or fancy gi, sport jiu-jitsu, or all sorts of stuff. And now I'm here and I feel like I'm finally at a place where I get my ass kicked like every single day, like you just said. And
dude, if you don't get butterflies in your belly before you roll at your place, you're at the wrong place.
It's kind of how it is most of the time.
Good. You're at the right place then.
Yeah, I know. It's great, man. So kind of going into what we were going to originally talk about today was last time on the podcast, we got into kind of talking about like setting your intention and stuff like that and kind of like the power of your mind. We got into that at like the very, very end. I don't know if you remember. And lately you've been like talking about it on Facebook a lot lately. Could you kind of get into like, how did you get into studying the mind and the power of intention and willpower and stuff like that?
So Paul, yeah, I got into mind training, quote unquote, intentions or whatever you want to call it, when I had my first double hip surgery. So I had surgery on my labrums in my hip socket. They were torn. Basically what that did to me was it took me out of who I thought I identified myself with in life. As martial artists, we like to think of our martial arts as like our ace in our back pocket, and you know that's what we live for, and that's what our life's all about. If you never had a career-ending injury or something, you know, that could literally take all of your martial arts away from you, it's hard to think in that manner. So I was basically laid in a bed or a couch for 6 months straight, and I could barely walk. So it really made me rethink the way I see life and I see myself and what I want out of life, how I needed to be mentally strong during those really, really, really hard times. I mean, I couldn't even shower myself. I couldn't go to the bathroom myself. So it was really humbling, to say the least. I don't know if Phil ever told you he was in a similar situation.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
Again, like until you've been in that situation, before that situation, I was just like, yeah, like, you know, you just think it will never happen to you. Like, you're indestructible. You're just like, yeah, like, I train hard and I live life hard and, you know, nothing's going to stop me. But, man, that injury stopped me dead in my tracks, like dead in my tracks.
Yeah, that sucks, man.
It does. But it was actually wonderful because it really got me to think about what I want out of life, how I'm going to live my life, and what's going to happen later on in life when I don't have martial arts, if I don't have it. How do I train my mind and my body to be what it is that I want? I'm more than martial arts, is what I like to say.
Yeah.
I am more than jiu-jitsu. I am more than Muay Thai. If you associate yourself with Muay Thai and jiu-jitsu, what happens when you can't do that anymore? Who do you become?
It's a powerful way to think.
Who are you? Who are you without that?
Did you, you were the one who recommended it to me, the Zen way to the martial arts. Is that around the time when you started reading that, or did that come later?
That came later.
Okay.
I'm trying to think some of the earlier stuff that I was kind of reading, or my wife was my inspiration and my rock.
Yeah.
She was my girlfriend at the time. When I had that surgery, like, she would always say, you have to be stronger than your mind. My wife is a very, very, very strong-minded individual. She came here to America with barely any English, not knowing where she was going to go. Basically just took a whim on an internet, you know, like, oh yeah, I'm going to be an au pair in America with this family in Pennsylvania. Like, never had been here to America, had no family here, couldn't speak English, didn't have a phone, only had a couple dollars in her pocket, and came here to America and made a life for herself.
That's awesome.
So I really look up to her, and she has a lot of strength. So when I was going through this, she was like, yeah, you know, you have to be stronger than your mind, and you have to, you know, persevere. And that really did help me a lot. And then I got into, you know, reading different things and hearing different things, and again, changed the way that I look at who I am and what my life is about. I love jiu-jitsu. I love training hard. I love, you know, the commodity, and I want to be able to train jiu-jitsu for the rest of my life. But after having that experience, I know that I can deal with it again if I need to. And if I can't train jiu-jitsu again in my life, well, then that's okay. As a jiu-jitsu practitioner or martial arts practitioner, when that's taken away from you, that is, if jiu-jitsu is your life and martial arts are your life, if that's taken away from you, you almost feel like you got cheated and things aren't fair. But that's not the right way to look at it. The right way to look at it is, okay, this has been taken away from me. What can I do? Not, it got taken away from me, I'm going to cry. And because in the beginning I bitched and moaned and cried about it. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm too young, blah, 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 blah. But it made me really realize later on in life, when I don't have it, who am I going to be? What am I going to be about? Am I still going to be the same person? Absolutely. I have to carry myself like I'm never going to train martial arts again. I have to be bigger than martial arts.
Forgive me if this is like too personal, but who are you going to be?
I'm going to be the person I am every day in the gym.
The same?
The same person.
Mm-hmm.
A loving father to my child, a great husband for my wife, and a person who cares about other people and wants to give back to the world, and living in a state of, in awe, like being a good person. The person, I asked myself this: would you want to be friends with yourself? Would you want to be friends with yourself? I ask myself that all the time. Would you want to be best friends with yourself? If you can say yes, then you're offering a lot to other people. I think life is honestly about offering more to others than yourself.
I think so too. It goes back to like what we were just saying about community. You know, like we're all here together. You have to help others. You have to help them raise up to be better than you, because all ships rise with the tide. You know, when the tide goes up, everyone benefits. And
everyone benefits. And that's why, Paul, I opened up my studio. And after the surgeries, four surgeries in 4 years to be exact, 2 double hip surgeries, 2 knee surgeries.
That's a lot. Man. That's a lot.
We can get into that maybe on another podcast. There's a lot of jiu-jitsu practitioners. I actually have a private Facebook group. It's hip injuries for combat athletes. And I have so many guys. I wrote a blog on it. I'll send it to you. Please. On hip labrum tears. And I have guys from Egypt, soccer players. I have jiu-jitsu guys from California. I have a guy from Ireland contact me, a guy from Australia, who used to do rugby. And they're all contacting me because they want to know how they can get back to their sport after being injured. Because when you have a hip labrum tear, man, it feels like electric in your leg, and you can't even walk sometimes. Man. So they want to know how they can get back to doing what they love to do. And there's not that many treatments out there. What I had done is called hip resurfacing. And there's only about 6 doctors in America who actually perform this particular surgery.
Wow.
So, and in America, there's a couple guys in India. There's a guy in England who actually designed what's called the Birmingham hip resurface, mechanics. Yeah. It's a ball that they put on top of your femoral head. It's a steel ball. So it replaces your femoral head.
Wow.
Yeah. And he designed that. And what he did is he designed it for athletes, for people who are more active. So young people who are more active. Mm-hmm. And now there's people all over the world who have these injuries on their hips that want to know, what do I do now? Like, I'm hurt. Charlie, can you help me? What did you do? What has been in your experience? Yeah. So, and a lot of it, honestly, Paul, is me talking to these individuals and letting them know, like, hey, man, listen, I've been there before. I've cried. I've been down and out. I've cried to my wife. I walked 4 or 5 New York City blocks after visiting the doctor who did my surgery, not knowing where my life was going to be before even getting my second double hip surgery. And I've been there before, and I'm telling you right now, you cannot give up on what it is that you want in life. And you can't think like, this one doctor told me something, so I'm never going to be able to do it again. You have to think bigger than that. When there's a will, there's a way. Like, you'll make it happen. Mm-hmm. It might not be perfect, but you'll get there.
Man, do you think that the martial arts and hard training and things like that, do you think that helped you develop this type of mindset? Or do you think that this mindset helped make you better at jiu-jitsu?
Both. You have to be so this is for anybody who's going through a surgery or a really bad injury right now, where you are confined to your home and you don't know if you're ever going to be able to do your sport of liking again. If you're going through rehab and you need to keep your body on the up and up. The best thing I did for myself, the minute I woke up in the morning, literally the first thing I did when I woke up, what I do now, is I meditate for 10 minutes and I listen to some sort of positive message on YouTube, whether it's Les Brown, Tony Robbins, any kind of motivational audio or visual to help set the tone for the day, for the year, for the month, for the week, on what it is that I want to be doing. Do that for 90 days straight. I guarantee it will change your life.
Yeah, I've experienced that before.
I'll put money on it.
Yeah, for sure. Do you do a lot of affirmations or anything like that? Or are you more of like a listen to motivational video type of thing?
Actually neither, to tell you the truth. I'm of the mindset of, have you ever read the book As a Man Thinketh?
No, I haven't. I'll have to check that out.
Short read, really, really, really short read. Basically what he says is the message that you tell yourself is the message that you'll reap for the day. Mm-hmm. So if you have a garden, an empty garden, and you're watering your weeds, when you wake up in the morning to the end of the day, what's going to grow?
Weeds.
If you water your flowers, what's going to grow?
Flowers.
Okay. Now, to be realistic, which everybody's going to say, well, Charlie, there's always going to be weeds. That's just not how life is. Okay, I get it. There's going to be some weeds. With some flowers, there are some weeds. But do you want more flowers or do you want more weeds? Do you want 90% weeds and 10% flowers? Or do you want 90% flowers and 10% weeds? I think it's like an all or none mentality. We have this whole thing with like positive thinking, and I think it's great. And a lot of people are like, that's bullshit. You know, your life's not positive. That's not real. Yeah. I've been told that. You're not being real. Tell me what's more real about being negative than being positive. Tell me what's more real.
Yeah, exactly.
What's more real about it? Think about it. What's more real about it?
Nothing. It's the same.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly the same thing.
So water the flowers, not the weeds. Think about what you are telling yourself. You're the samurai writing your own script. Nobody else is writing it. You're writing it yourself. If you're allowing somebody else to write it, well, you need to take that piece of paper and pen away from that person.
What other books did you read to kind of help you develop this type of mentality?
The Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning. He's a Holocaust survivor.
Oh, wow.
Actually, Rick Migliarese is big on that book, too. So this individual talks about how he would find... Listen to this. When you think you're having a bad day, read this dude's book. He would talk about how he would find the good in the day. And when he says the good in the day, he's talking about sleeping on a wooden pallet with 5 other men in the freezing cold with no shoes or socks on after working a 10-hour day. He found the good in laying on that hard wooden pallet and just relaxing there with his friends after a hard day. Think about that. He was watering his flowers even in the most horrible, harshest times that probably anybody will ever experience, ever. Think about that.
It's crazy.
Right? And then it puts things in perspective.
Yeah. Perspective, I think, is very important. Very important. Like, even like little things like, do you know who Joe DeSena is?
No.
He's the guy who started the Spartan race. And I've heard him on some podcasts too. And he lives out in a ranch in Vermont that he owns. And he has tons of property. And there's a mountain on his property, like kind of in his backyard. There's a pretty big mountain, apparently. And he said he wakes up at 3 a.m. every single day and he climbs that mountain every single day. That's how he starts it off. And he said like sometimes he like runs up the mountain and he does the whole thing. Some days he like just does some sprints up the mountain. Like, you know, he like changes it up, but he's like every single day I go to that mountain and I work out and I do something and I do it at 3 a.m. And he's like, you know, everything for the rest of the day is easy. Like anything that you go through, you're like, fuck man, I had this ridiculously tough experience to start off my day. That puts the rest of the day into the perspective. And now if something difficult comes up during the day, you're like, oh, it's not as hard as that mountain that I climbed at 3 a.m.
Dude, that's an awesome analogy that you just actually said, because that reminds me of this diagram that I've actually was looking at, which makes complete sense because as humans, we have needs, right?
Right.
And once certain needs are met, then we prioritize certain things over certain things. So this guy, what's his name? Joe
DeSena.
Joe what?
DeSena.
Yeah, Joe DeSena. Yeah. You know, this guy's running up this mountain every day. And, you know, that is tough. It's hard. Without modern civilization, he'd probably be running up that mountain
every single day.
Twice a day. Exactly. He's running up the mountain to get food. So the rest of the day seems okay. So it brings me to this.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, man.
Survival, security, belonging, esteem, self-actualize. So what does that mean? Well, when I can survive and all my needs are taken care of, well, then everything kind of seems kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
If you don't push yourself outside of that boundary,
Right.
you can just be confined to blahness every day.
It's one of the reasons I love jiu-jitsu, because it kind of helps you connect with your primal self in a way. Not primal, but your, your humanness, so to speak. Because you're fighting someone, you're engaging in physical contest, so to speak, with another person. And it's all very healthy, And I think that people miss out when they don't have something like that. I think people miss out big time.
For sure, man. For sure. You wonder how people do life without martial arts, right?
I do. I think about it a lot, actually. I think, people who I know who don't train martial arts or jiu-jitsu for that matter, like a sparring martial art, something very difficult. I think it hits me every once in a while, wait a minute, this person I know, they don't do this every, 5 days a week. And I think what would my life be like? I've been doing it for 6 years now. And I feel I'm sure you feel even stronger. You've been doing it even longer than me, much longer than me. So, I'm I can't even remember what it was like, or how I remember what it was like, but I don't remember how I felt on a daily basis, And I just think wow, so many people go through life and they don't have this experience.
Yeah, they don't have the experience, and cherish every week and year that you can train, because one day it can be taken away from you. And you have to be prepared for that day, because we are not designed to live forever. We are not designed to roll jiu-jitsu forever. I hope that I can roll jiu-jitsu into my late 60s. But, ideally I'd like to roll up until I can't physically do it anymore. But, that's not up to me. Well, that's up to see what goes on.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to train like the lion and the beast, and they want to be the baddest dude in the gym or in the circuit of jiu-jitsu or the MMA dude. But nobody wants to live the life after that on the walker or the crutches, or their wife has to bathe them, or they have to crawl around on their arms later on in life. And nobody wants to live that. But everyone wants to talk about training like the beast. But nobody wants to talk about what happens after training like the beast, right?
Yes, I know, man.
Yeah, it's like the elephant in the room. It's like the big elephant in the room. It's there, but nobody wants to look at it.
Yeah, I know. That's why we need yoga and good nutrition and good physical conditioning to keep your bones and tendons, sorted out. Good supplements, days off. Things like that. I think it's so important. I think recovery is the thing that is most undervalued in our sport. People in weightlifting know all about recovery. Recovery is number one. If you're a strongman or a bodybuilder, recovery is so important, where you're okay, as soon as I get done training, I'm thinking about recovery. I'm thinking about, what am I going to eat? When am I going to eat it? What supplements am I going to take? Am I going to do a cold bath tonight, or a Epsom salt bath? Or am I going to meditate to help my body calm down? How much sleep am I going to get? Bodybuilders and CrossFitters and people like that, they think about that all the time. And that's how they get results. But jiu-jitsu people are just so in love with the sport, which is a beautiful thing because it's so much fun. They're just I'll train twice a day and, we'll see what happens. I'll smoke some weed and I'll be fine.
Right. Until their neck or their shoulder starts hurting, yes. And they go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, oh, you have one of your spine is not aligned correctly, and you have a pinched disc in your neck, and we'll need to do surgery. And then they're like, oh, corrective. Shit. Time to do recovery. Yeah. Too late, dude. You know who's really big on that stuff? I really, really, really like? Steve Maxwell.
Oh yeah, Steve Maxwell talks about this all the time.
Who do you know trains like Steve Maxwell, that looks like Steve Maxwell, has been training as long as Steve Maxwell?
No one.
Yeah, exactly.
No one. He knows people. I'm sure he knows people.
It's not who's training. It's not how, when you start training, it's who's left at the end.
Yes. He said it on the last Joe Rogan podcast. Joe was asking him who do you look up to in the world of fitness, and he said the only people he listens to these days are people who are still training and they're over 90 or like in their 80s or 90s.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, he was like, I don't want to listen to some 30-year-old dude. He's like, even if what the 30-year-old dude is saying is like makes sense or, is good information, he's like, I'm going to focus on listening to the guys who are like 90 and still lifting weights, because it's like, obviously they figured something out where they know how to do this the right way.
Yeah, how sustainable is your training? Henner always talks about this, and his brother. I love Henner and his brother, man. They're
great.
Awesome breakdowns, and
they're awesome.
Phil talks really highly of them. How long do you want to train for? Do you want to train for the next 5 years, or do you want to train for the next 15 years? Mm-hmm. How sustainable is your training?
Yeah. Yep.
Can you uphold your training? Have you had Steve on the show?
No, I really want to. I'll try to get him on.
So I'm doing a workshop with him in April in New York City. Body weight conditioning. A whole day event, man. I'm so excited to do it.
That's awesome.
I did an event with him in Scranton, Pennsylvania a couple months ago.
Oh, cool.
And man, he's a sharp guy.
Yeah, he seems like it. It's a very interesting dude. Very, very interesting. Yeah, I'd love to have him on.
Do you do anything for your recovery or supplement or food?
Yeah, I do a lot. I try to do a lot. Kind of going back to what you were saying with the doctors and stuff. My elbows were really inflamed, so I went to see a orthopedics. What are they called? Not a physical therapist. The occupational therapist. Mm-hmm. For my elbow, and they did an MRI on both my elbows, and he told me that my elbows basically, I'm 25, I was 24 when I went and talked to him. He was like, you have the elbow of like a 45-year-old dude. It's like, what the fuck were you what are you doing? And I was like, okay, pull-ups, push-ups, Kimuras, straight arm bars, omoplata, all this stuff, and I was like, my elbows are just fucked up, and so that was 2 years ago, and it still hurts a lot. But he told me that I had a torn tendon in one, and he told me I had tendinitis in both my elbows. But he said I have tendinitis in a part of my elbows where you usually do not get tendinitis. You know what I mean? Usually you get tendinitis up here, on the top of your elbow, and I have it underneath my elbow.
That's golfer's elbow.
Yeah, exactly. And he was like, people don't get golfer's elbow till they're 45, usually. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? And so that was a while ago. And now I've just started really taking recovery more seriously. And I started with yoga. That's been incredible. I talk about a lot on the show. The yoga is so life-changing for me. I stopped lifting weights so much and just doing a lot more body weight training or less reps. I still try to work out, but I do maybe 8 to 10 repetitions of an exercise at most, and I do that you know what I mean? I don't do 30 or 40 push-ups in a row. I'll do 10 perfect push-ups, and stuff like that. And then ice baths are very important. I try to do ice baths a lot. Sauna. I like the sauna, and then cold shower, alternate that. Because anything to basically just get the blood flowing through your tendons and help them stay healthy. And fish oil, very important. So what about you? What type of stuff do you do?
So funny you asked. Before I forget, Steve Maxwell has it's called the 2-minute 1-rep workout. Check it out. It's on his website. I think it's $10 for a 30-minute video. Mm-hmm. And Scott Burr is on there. It's one of Steve's black belts. He is crazy strong, man. When I watched him do these 1-minute reps, I was like, oh my God, this dude is crazy strong. So what you're doing is you're putting your tendons, ligaments, and muscles under tension it's called time under tension for a long period of, for quote unquote, a long period of time. And you're only doing 1 rep. So I tried this workout before. It literally smoked me. I only worked out for 15, maybe 20 minutes.
Wow.
So it's a positive and a negative for a minute. So think about being in the push-up position, sinking down 1 minute and then coming up 1 minute. And what that does is put your tendons and ligaments under load for longer. So you're not just strengthening the muscle, you're strengthening the tendons and the ligaments while under extreme tension for a longer duration than, say, reps.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that. Sounds horrible. I'll have to give it a shot.
Game changer, dude. Game changer.
That's awesome. I've actually heard him talk about that. Like, I've never done it. I've never done that one. I'm definitely gonna try it now.
Game changer. After you do it, let me know.
I will. So whenever someone like mentions something like this and they're like, "Man, this is super hard," I think like I got to do it now. I can't like know about it and like never do it. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, I know big, strong dudes that can't even do a 30-second descend on a pull-up to a 30-second, to pull back up.
Yeah.
Think about it. 30 seconds down, 30 seconds back up.
It's a long-ass time. Long
time.
Jeez.
So what I've been doing for nutrition recently is I've been working with Renaissance Periodization. And they are a nutrition group based here, I think in America, but I think they have other facilities around the world. And Jen Case is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a PhD in sports nutrition and strength and conditioning. She is my coach, and I think I mentioned her to be on the podcast.
Yeah, she's coming on the podcast in a few weeks.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So maybe she could talk to you more about it.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been working with her for the past 6 weeks on specific nutrition for what I do in my grappling and everything, and it's been good, man. It's been really just eye-opening to like what I was doing before. I thought I was doing it before, right? But apparently I wasn't.
What types of things, like what are some of the biggest changes that you've made through Renaissance Periodization?
Renaissance Periodization, the biggest change that I've made is what I'm taking while I'm working out if it's more than a half an hour long. And I'll do a non-flavored whey protein with some sort of high glycemic index sugar mixed together, and it actually it really helps my endurance. Like I can go like longer rounds.
Have you heard of Barbell Shrugged? That
sounds really familiar.
Yeah, it's a podcast for CrossFitters and weightlifting and strongman. And one of the guys who runs it, Mike Bledsoe, he was on the podcast a few weeks ago, and that dude's awesome. But they have a program called the 6-Month Muscle Gain Challenge. And it's all like weightlifting, like Olympic weightlifting, snatch, clean and jerk, squat. And I did that program like 2 years ago. They recommended the same thing. Every single workout you have either BCAAs or a whey protein, creatine, and then, like you said, like a dextrose or something like that, some sort of like sugar, like low glycemic sugar. And then you mix that all up with water, and it doesn't taste like delicious, but it's awesome, and you feel great. You could work out for forever.
Yeah, you can work out longer. And the main reason I got with Jen and Renaissance Periodization is I wasn't recovering correctly. So the food quality was obviously good. I eat good. I say 90% of the time. Me and my wife love pizza, so we try to go out at least once a week or whatever for that. Right now I haven't been doing it that much because Jen is pretty strict on what I should be having. So I stick the plan. Yeah. I looked at it for more recovery, not so much aesthetics, but my aesthetics are getting better because I'm eating better.
Yeah.
And my recovery is getting better because my nutrition's better. And so the cycle, works.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Jen is phenomenal with, explaining why we need this and why we need that. And in the first week was rough because I was used to just eating kind of quote unquote whatever I wanted, but healthy stuff. But now I'm like regimented on how much of what I should be eating. And some days, honestly, dude, last night, like I almost couldn't eat all the food that I was supposed to eat. And I'm getting leaner every single week.
That's
like
awesome.
I'm putting down like at least 3,500 calories on some days.
Man, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to look into that. I'll definitely ask her about it when she's on the show.
Yeah, look into that and talk to her, because as a jiu-jitsu practitioner or a martial artist, you, as hard as you train, you have to recover just as hard. So if you're going to do twice a day training, you're going to have to put in more food in your body than you think that you need.
Yes, exactly. And you have to do everything. You have to sleep right. Like, for example, these guys, the Barbell Shrug podcast that I just mentioned, they talk about recovery a lot. And they said, as a rule of thumb, for every training session you have, you should have 1 extra hour of sleep. So you're supposed to have 8 hours of sleep. So if you train twice a day and each training session is like a tough training session, you should have 10 hours of sleep that night.
Oh my God, I have a baby. That doesn't happen.
Exactly. Like, it doesn't happen. Like, it doesn't happen for me, but it's like, that's the goal, you know, for one day to be like, ideally, if you want to stay in, you know, in a perfect world, or you would have like 8 hours sleep that night and then like a nap during the day, something like that.
I feel the difference when I sleep 8 hours plus. Dude, do you feel the difference when you wake up in the morning? You're like, I feel great.
For sure. Feel fantastic. I don't remember the last time that happened though. It's been a minute. Maybe sometimes on the weekend, but for the most part, nope. I usually do like 7. But yeah, man, recovery is huge. Like, you know, people talk about overtraining and things like that. Like, overtraining is like a medical condition. You know, if you are overtrained, it means like your body is so depleted and so like dehydrated and you have nothing left. And like, you should probably go to the hospital because you might need like an IV. So like, overtraining, like, it's not like you're overtrained. It's like you're under recovered. You know, you just need to rest. You just need to, and of course, like, if you are under recovered for a very long time, then like you could become overtrained. You know, it could be dangerous, but like, you probably just need a nap, a yoga session or something like.
Whatever it is, maybe you need more food. Maybe, like you said, maybe you need a yoga session. Maybe you need more sleep. But you definitely need to stay aware of, and Maxwell talks about this, you need to be aware of your own body and how you're performing, how your sleep is. If you got bad sleep the day before and you feel like shit and your heart rate's through the roof when you wake up, don't train that day. You're going to do more bad than good. Again, that goes back to training like the lion mentality. I only had 4 hours of sleep. I don't care. I'll just push through it, you know?
Yeah.
That happens a couple times a month, a couple times a year. Years turn into centuries. Centuries turn into overtrained, overworked, hurt muscles, hurt joints, and now you're broken for life.
Yep. Charlie, this has been great.
Awesome, man.
It's been great.
Well, I'm excited for you to have had me back on here, man. I really, really appreciate that.
Dude, we'll have to do it again. Seriously, like, you know, that was just like an hour and 15 minutes, and I feel like we just started. But I see now how like Joe Rogan does 3 hours. You know, I've thought about doing some longer form podcasts, but I don't know. If you're listening to this and you're like, man, if only they would keep talking for like 3 more hours, let me know.
Yeah, and if any of your listeners need to contact me about any hip injuries, I'm good with hip injuries since I've had 2 bilateral hip surgeries. Mm-hmm. Please let them know to contact me on Facebook or my email, charlie@budomartialartsstudio.com. And I can help them out, find a doctor, or, you know, steer them in the right direction. Because honestly, Paul, there's about 30 people in my group who all do martial arts that are looking for a way to help their hips out to get back to jiu-jitsu or whatever martial art they do. John Danaher had the same surgery that I had.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had the same surgery I had in New York City. He, I don't know who he got it done by. I think he got it done by Dr. Sue, who's an excellent hip resurfacing person. But this is what happens, you know, in our line of sport. We don't do patty cake.
Man, anyone listening, I'll have all this info in the show notes. So if you want to contact Charlie, just go to matrix.com and you'll find the podcast. Is there anything you want to promote or anything you want to end with?
Promote? No, I don't have anything to promote. I just promote good well-being and martial arts. Wherever you are in your life, remember, you're not stuck there forever. You can do whatever you want in life. Never give up on what it is that you're trying to do. I'm a living example of things that have went wrong in my life. I am now doing the things that I want to do, and that doesn't mean that somewhere in my life that something won't happen to put me back in that place. But remember, never give up and keep striving to be the best you.
Charlie, you're the man. Thank you so much for coming on the show one more time, and we'll have to.
Thanks for having me, man.
We'll have to do it again, man, for sure.
Definitely.
Hopefully live. Hopefully when you come to Europe sometime.
Yeah, I'll come to Germany. Me and my wife, and I'll come train with you. And
yeah, dude, that'd be great.
My wife's German, part German.
Yeah, perfect.
So she wants to get in that part of the world anyway, so we'll do that for sure.
Man. Perfect. Can't wait. All right, have a great day, man. I really appreciate it.
You also.
Thanks so much to Charlie for being on the show. And as always, thanks to you guys for tuning in and listening. If you like this podcast, please go to iTunes or Stitcher or wherever it is you found this podcast and give it a 5-star rating and a review. I actually don't know if Stitcher does 5-star ratings. They should. Stitcher might be 1 out of 4 or 4 out of 4, hopefully, unless you guys want to give it a 1 out of 4. But whatever device you listen to this podcast on, please give us a review and a rating. That really helps us out. Great way to support the show. It's easy to do. It's totally free and helps us a lot. Some of you guys might not know this if you only listen to the podcast, but we also have a full video service. Go over to matrix.com and you'll find all the links to our social media, including our YouTube page. The Matrix YouTube page is alive and well, my friends. Alive and well. I handle the podcast, but my business partner, Andreas Resch, who has also been on the podcast in a kind of a roundabout way right there, Andreas handles the videos. And recently, Andreas went on a trip to Miami and he made a series of video blogs. So if you like vlogs, you enjoy watching them, Andreas did a really great job. So far, we've got 5 released and we've got a few more coming out. We're posting one every week. We also have narrated roles between people at our academy and different people who have come through. We have one of me versus Andreas where I get my ass kicked. So there's all sorts of content over there and I really hope you guys enjoy it and go check it out. Once again, if you like tournaments, we have one coming up. We are covering the Matrix Jiu-Jitsu Invitational on the 12th of March. We'll have a free live stream available to you for you to share with your friends, watch by yourself. Maybe you watch with a significant other, who knows? Whatever you do, we got it for free. It'll be over at our YouTube channel. So that is youtube.com/c-matrix show your roll. Or you can just go to matrix.com and you can find it there as well. I'm really excited for this tournament. It's going to be a 5-man round robin submission only tournament. We have €400 cash on the line for the winner. The winner will also receive a support package from our sponsor BJJ Fight Gear and a 6-month free account at Yoga for BJJ. It's going to be a really fun tournament. We have some really good guys competing. I hope you guys enjoy and tune in on the 12th of March. Additionally, if you live anywhere near Kaiserslautern, Germany, you are more than welcome to come to Leg Lock Weekend happening on the 25th and 26th of March. On the 25th, Oliver Taza is going to be teaching a seminar, and on the 26th, Dean Lister will be teaching a seminar. It's a great way to come out and see kind of a new school approach from Oliver Taza versus a old school leg lock approach from Dean Lister. Both those guys are going to have great information, so I hope to see some of you guys there. All of the information can be found on our Facebook page. If you guys like Matrix and you like what we're doing, subscribe to our newsletter at matrix.com and you'll get some regularly updated content. Last but not least, thanks again as always to my friends at Waves Overhead for making all of the theme music for this podcast. Their song To Make Amends is the theme song for the Matrix podcast. You heard a little bit at the beginning and I'm going to play the rest of the song right now.